I think most of you know KK Owen. KK is our Studer rep and coach, and we're excited to have her in the district today. It's been quite a while since we've kind of done a reset with the rollout procedures for survey results. And all of you just, about a week ago or so received the results from the employee engagement survey. I think we're due to get the parent survey results on January 5th, if I remember right. So we're going to talk about both of those this morning because, of course, those rollouts are just a little bit different. But we really want to do a reset with that. There are many people in this room who have really never had any training whatsoever on a rollout process. And because, you were hired after that last training occurred. And then also we have probably just, Janesville has a long history with Studer, and we were, as I think most of you know, kind of the pilot school district in the country really for this process. And so we probably have some past practices that were based on some trial and error stuff that was going on really in our early days. And it's not that that's right or wrong or good or bad, it's just is what it is. And I think the process has evolved a little bit in terms of what is coached in districts across the country right now by Studer. And so I think it's time for us to all kind of have a fresh look at what the current rollout procedures are that Studer is recommending. And so KK is here to share that process with us this morning and to help us to walk out of here this morning with a plan for doing those upcoming events. And so without further ado, let me turn it over to KK. KK, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I am happy to be here. Very happy to be here. It's a little chilly for this Florida girl, but I'm surviving. I have a big coat and some gloves. But at least it's not snowing and the roads aren't icy, which was my prayer on the way here yesterday through all the flights. I thought, please don't have me drive in the snow and ice. It won't be pretty for the rest of the people on the road. Although Melissa Matarazzo, another coach, she spent a good bit of time my first year coaching trying to teach me how to drive in snow and ice. She's from Rochester, New York, and still lives there, so she's quite experienced. The rest of us, Janet, Robin, me, not so much. So you've already heard a lot of information this morning, haven't you? Yeah. Do you sometimes feel like you're just getting information overload? Like all really important stuff, but you're trying to file it in your brain. Where does that go? And where does this go? And what's my action step? Is there anything I need to do right now based on what I heard? Anything I need to do tomorrow, this afternoon, next week, over the holidays? Yikes. And our lives are like that, aren't they? When you're a leader, I think when you're a leader in any organization is what we're finding. That is your life. You are constantly on the treadmill. So what we're going to do this morning is just take a pause. We're just going to take a leadership pause. We spend a lot of time taking care of all the many, many details that you're responsible for. We heard a little bit about professional development for teachers this morning. You do a lot of that. Those of you who work on the operations side, you also do a lot of management of processes and operations that support the work going on in the schools. We don't very often take time for leader development. We rarely do that. If you look at budgets for school systems across the country, you find that there's a great focus on employee development, on teacher development particularly, but other employees as well. But leader development is a pretty haphazard business around this country. It's not done in a systematic way like we do that for other sets of employees. So give yourself permission to work on you a little bit this morning. And as Steve said, we're going to do what we call a reset for employee engagement, how we roll that out. And then a little bit later, we'll also do that same thing for parent satisfaction so that you'll feel prepared. A lot of you have done this many times. How many of you have done rollouts over and over and over the last years? Okay, so quite a few. How many of you have never done a results rollout to employees? Okay, good. Here's why Steve and I decided to do a reset. Like Steve said, Janesville is the original. This is the original place where all of this work started with Quint many years ago. And I'm sure you're aware that Quint is still very proud of this school system and the fact that he's from here and the fact that Janesville was willing to go with him down a path when he had a great idea, but he really didn't know what he was doing. So fast forward a few years, when he and Janet Pilcher got together, she didn't know what she was doing, and she'll tell you that. I was with her the day that she made the decision to leave her position as the Dean of Professional Studies at the University of West Florida and team up with Quint to see what this would do in education. And she sat there. She was this very strange shade of green and gray. And she said, KK, I have the worst stomachache I've ever had in my life. I might have just made a terrible mistake. So fast forward some more. We now are in 65 school districts, colleges and universities around the country doing this work. I wish I knew how many states, but I don't. I work in 12 states. And we are now, from the original two, Robin and Janet, we now have 6 coaches. We just met yesterday in Pensacola, planning our year for 2018. We're going to hire 2 more coaches in 2018. So this thing is growing and growing and growing. So Quint had a great idea. You guys helped him figure it out. And he is grateful, and we are grateful at Studer Education. And so are all the other districts and organizations around the country. By the way, I just said organization. We're actually expanding this work beyond school districts now, and we're working with a couple of county governments, believe it or not. This started in Waukesha. They said, we heard about this. We know a lot of school systems are doing this in Wisconsin. We want to try to do this with our county government. So we have a new coach, and he and I together are coaching in Waukesha. And so think about this. We've got the clerk of court's office. We've got the sheriff's department. Parks and recreation, roads and bridges. So all of these entities. So think about you guys with the HR department and technology and all of your departments and then all of your different schools. So think about a county government. So we're trying to figure that out with Waukesha and a couple of other places. So just thanks for being the originals. So you will always be, no one else will ever have that spot but you guys. I think I know a good number of you, but I don't know everybody. So let me very quickly do my ADIT so you know that who I am. Who knows what an ADIT is? Yes! That's why you're the originals. When I ask people that around the country, you see people going, what? They talk to each other like, I don't know what that is. So my name is KK Owen. I'm a leader coach with Studer Education. I've been doing this work about 4 years. Prior to that, I spent 35 years in public education in Louisiana, in Orlando, Florida, and then in Pensacola, Florida. The majority of that experience was in the Escambia County School System, which is the Pensacola, Florida school system. We have pretty big school systems for the most part in Florida because they're county systems. Some of them, Miami-Dade, Duval, Orange, are huge, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools, really. So believe it or not, my school district, 45,000 kids, 65 schools, is considered a medium-sized district in Florida. So during my time in public education, I was a special education teacher, a general education teacher, assistant principal, director of professional development and teacher and leader evaluation, and senior leader on my superintendent's district team. So that's my background. I work with partner districts around the country, and I was just thrilled last year when Robin asked me to take over the coaching for Janesville. because I'm just so proud of you guys, and it helps me stay connected to Quint. Quint and I have been friends for a very long time, and so it's special to be with you guys. All right, so this is your time. This is for you. It makes the rest of your life easier down the road when you take some time to pause and develop you. You've seen this flywheel many times. And we're going to focus today on what Quint calls always actions. You know the story of how Quint developed this flywheel on a napkin, on an airplane, and he can't spell. I've seen the original napkin. It is ugly. It is ugly, but it's working. And it works, and it helps people be better, and it helps school districts get better outcomes. So if you look at that top left, the prescriptive to-dos, that's what we're really going to talk about today for part of our time together. What are some of these always actions that some of you have been doing for many years, some of you may have never done, and we've kind of got everything in between? For us to really get good results, one of the things we have to do is execute well. And that doesn't mean that we all have to be exactly alike. We don't have to be a team of robots out there rolling out results. But we do have to be consistent enough that all the stakeholders have a similar experience. So if I get a results rollout at where I work in the HR department, and I talk to my friend who is a teacher at a school, we can have a conversation and we will have had a similar experience. Not identical, but similar. The same elements. Does that make sense? The reason we want to do consistent leadership practices with always actions like results rollout, reduce anxiety and raise confidence. Everybody in this Janesville school system should be able to say, I have confidence in our leaders. I have confidence in our superintendent, confidence in our board. They know what they're doing and I trust them. When people have that feeling, that's when we start to get to the middle of the flywheel. Then they're able to focus on things like purpose, worthwhile work, and making a difference, which is why we're really here. Because they don't have to worry about feeling safe, valued, listened to. They have confidence that the leaders have that part of it. So that's the reason that every now and then we recommend a reset. Let's just go back to what is the original process. Let's take a look at it. So we're going to do that today, as well as work on a couple of these other 9 principles. But let's just pause for a moment. You've seen these many times. You'll notice a couple of changes here and there. And this is actually undergoing still another evolution as we speak. Janet is doing a lot of work in higher ed with colleges and universities. And as she puts it, people in universities sort of live in a different world than we live in. And they like different words than we like. That's okay. Is that food are you going to share with me? Oh, good. So she's really in the process of trying to come up with some new words that will resonate not only with higher ed, but now we've got this organization piece out there, city governments. So how do we bring it all together? Because, as Quint learned, when the major entities, the big players, the people who drive a city, a community, are working together on the same journeys, that makes a stronger community. So when you go into a community where maybe there's a hospital, that's a student group hospital, and there's a school district, that's a student group school district, and then you get that county government involved. And so everybody is using similar processes to manage the work of that community. Amazing things can happen. People want to move there. They want to raise their families there. They want to work there. And communities start to grow and become better communities. And I can tell you this works because I live in such a community. Where Quint started, as you know, for us in Pensacola at our hospital, at Baptist Hospital. Then the school district came on board, and now he has the Community Institute where he is working with all the government entities in Pensacola, and it is making a huge difference. Just in the last few months, we've been named one of the top 10 best towns in America to move to, best downtown, best this, best that, and the list just goes on. It's like every day you open the paper, there's some other award. So pretty cool. So amazing things can happen. All right, so look at this list. Talk to your neighbor for 1 minute. I'm going to wave my arms at the end of 1 minute. What do you think you do well? Pick out one that you think you as leaders in Janesville do well. We got that. And then pick out one you think is an opportunity for improvement. What do you do well? What's an opportunity? Go. Stand back.
Oh, yeah. I think that's still strong. So we can transition and it's hard. I feel like that is
Okay. All right. Thanks for having that conversation with your neighbor. Anybody want to share one you think you do well? One you're knocking it out of the park on. Yes, thank you.
Principle number 7.
Number 7, align behaviors with goals and values.
It's pretty clear all of us have a clear focus on student achievement and making that our primary goal for everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else talk about a different one they think you do well?
3.
3?
Yeah.
Build a culture of service.
Absolutely.
I think number 2 as well, measuring important things.
Mm-hmm. What about one that might be an opportunity where we could get better?
In communication, we can always improve who and when and how.
Communicate at all levels. That's one everybody works on continually. It's always important to focus on that and never let that go. Any others we think might be an opportunity? Yes.
I would say with number 2, that we measure a lot of different things, but prioritizing what we do with that.
Yeah.
What we're looking for.
Measure the important things. And school districts measure and measure and measure and measure and measure and measure.
It's getting, I've seen an improvement. I mean, we're starting to look at different ways to do things, but yeah, we measure everything. That hasn't improved at all.
So, do you notice what just happened here? We already do that. We already do that well. We can still improve. That's that continuous improvement cycle. We already do that well, but we can always get better. Yes, sir.
I'd say number 4, and not that we don't already do it well, just back to your point, because this entire room is filled with former teachers of the school district of Janesville,
Yes.
and now they've developed into leaders, but to sustain the good work we do in the district, we have to make sure we develop internally the leaders.
Yes, we do. How many of you have been in your leadership position less than 5 years? Yeah. So turn around and look behind you at the people who are in your organization, who are following in your footsteps. So in your school, in your department, always have your eye out for who shows signs of natural leadership. Who could I help pull along and develop? Because we really, as a profession, we do this very poorly, unfortunately. Colleges and universities don't do a very good job of preparing people to be leaders in school systems. And we say, oh, so-and-so's a really great teacher. I bet they'd make a good principal. Sometimes and sometimes not. Those are two separate skill sets. Teaching and leading are very different. So having that in our head and always concentrating on that number 4, really, really important. Okay, so thanks for focusing on that for a minute. I know you've heard a lot of student group coaches probably talk about the fact that these are the things that high-performing organizations do. They hit on these 9 cylinders consistently, and they execute well on these 9 things. So here's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to do the results rollout review or reset, as we say with our long-term partners who are doing just what we're doing today. Steve and I talked about walking through a piece on why change survives and why it doesn't. It's really about change management. I heard a lot of changes in the works in the leaders who spoke to you this morning. Did you hear a lot of changes in the works? Yeah. A lot of things are changing in Janesville. You have a new superintendent. There have been some dramatic changes made. Who manages change for everybody else in a system? The leaders. That's right, the leaders. Everybody watches what the leaders do all the time. Even when you don't think anybody's watching you, they are. They pay attention to what leaders say all the time. And that often becomes what they say. What you do becomes what they do. So your role in managing change matters a lot. So we're going to walk through a piece on managing change. Then we're going to circle back to parent satisfaction. That one's going to be quick, but we're going to quickly review that rollout process because it'll be coming up, as Steve said, in January. And then we'll talk about our next steps. You've seen this framework probably many times. This is a slightly newer model than the old one, but everything is still the same in the framework, and everything is still in the same order in the framework. Aligned goals, aligned behavior, aligned process has not changed. So this is where we are today, leader development. Making sure that you have a strong skill set in a really important part of the work that you do. Keeping employees engaged, keeping parents satisfied. And rollout is a powerful, powerful piece of that. So when we say leader development, this is what we're doing. Assisting leaders to develop skills, competencies, so that they can reach the desired results. Make those promises come true. You have a beautiful set of new promises. Now we got to make them happen. So what we're working on today is this part right here, hardwiring that best place to work and service excellence leadership. So that's the place that we're working in the framework here. So results rollout review for the employee engagement survey. These are 4 things high-performing leaders do. The one we're hitting on today is that first one. A relentless focus on leading whatever it is that you lead. So take one more minute and talk to your neighbor. If you don't like the neighbor you talked to the first time, feel free to get up and go find a new neighbor. Look at that list and tell your neighbor, which one do you think you already do well? and where you think you are on number one, that relentless focus on leading a successful system, department, school, or unit. Give yourself a little score on a scale of 1 to 10. How relentless are you with that focus? Okay, talk to your neighbor.
I mean, this is a good example of, we've heard a lot of these. We don't give up. So maybe we are clear. So I feel like I see
Okay. So who thinks on a scale of 1 to 10, they're a 10 on relentlessly leading a successful system, that they're focusing on the right things every day for their school or department? Any 10s? 10. 110. Okay, we have people pointing to each other. You got to own your own score, man. Own your own score. How many people gave themselves between a 7 and a 9 on relentless daily focus? Okay? How many people gave themselves between a 4 and a 6? Some very honest people in the room. So below that, I won't ask you to raise your hand. But I have a feeling that there are honest people in here who thought, you know what? There are some days that I'm relentless, but maybe I'm not focusing on what it is I should be focusing on. It is very, very easy to let all of the minutia get in the way, and we lose focus on what it is we're supposed to be hammering on every day, don't we? So helping ourselves get a better skill set to really know, when am I doing this relentless daily focus on leading a successful system, school, department, or unit? And when am I just being relentless? Random relentlessness. And then you go home at the end of the day and you're exhausted. And have you really taken forward motion steps to be successful? So that's really what a lot of the tools and tactics are about, because there aren't 100 of them. It's a small set of evidence-based leadership tools and tactics, results rollout being one of the key ones. If we make sure we do those well, those few things, then we are building that relentless daily focus on what it is we should be focused on. Okay, so just to know where we are, this goes back to what I said earlier about professional development. We're really focused on helping teachers be better teachers, aren't we? And you could also put in there, employees be better employees. They can't do that without great leadership. So your skill set as leaders is critically important to their success. These are the stakeholder surveys that you guys do, that most people do, and sort of where they fit. Some are service, to our external customers, some are service to our internal customers. And the employee engagement survey is really that best place to work. Everybody wants to work in a place they think is the best. That's how they find that purpose, worthwhile work, and making a difference. When great people leave our system, great employees, great teachers, great leaders, we have to ask ourselves the why question. Why are they leaving? And sometimes it's because they're not engaged. And that's on us. Leaders own that. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, this gets to be a test now, since that graphic's not showing up. You've seen this chart before. When we first get our results, what's the first thing we want to do? Deny the data. Right? So that's what that's supposed to say. Deny the data. In fact, I think it does say that somewhere in there. So first we say, oh no, they didn't understand the questions. No, it's not like that here. Well, there's no way this could be right. There's some sort of scoring error. So that deny is our human first reaction to any kind of data, including employee engagement results. Oh, the second one worked. So the test is over. Now you get to see the rest of them. Then we say, okay, here, these are the scores, but that's really not my problem. That's Steve's problem. He's the superintendent. That's the board's problem. They made the decision to implement that unpopular policy. Or that's the state of Wisconsin. They did that to us. So it's very easy to say, yep, it is what it is, but it's really not my problem. And then we get to this level. This is a problem. I'm accepting that there's data here that's not exactly favorable, but there's nothing I can do about it. I lived in this stage for a very long time. When I was a senior leader at my school district, I had a lot of employees who were all over the district, out in all 65 schools. I very rarely had them all together. And that was one of their main complaints on employee engagement, was we don't see you enough. We don't get enough time with you. You know what I said? Too bad. Only 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, that's all I got. I cannot manufacture time. That's the way it is. But during the course of rolling out results to them and asking them how could this be better? What could I do differently? They didn't necessarily want more of me out in their schools and departments where they were functioning. They wanted more sort of team time. More time when we were all together, learning together, having great professional conversations about the work that we were doing together. That's what they wanted. I could fix that. But if I hadn't asked, I would have been stuck in nothing I can do about it. They want to see me more, but too bad. Not going to happen. But because I listened to them, we were able to make a change in when we met and how we met that was helpful to them. So we finally get to this place. We accept the data. We understand where the issues are that need to be resolved, and we accept that a solution can be found. Even if we don't like it, even if we don't like the solution, we are willing to listen and find a solution. So, back to the beginning. These are Quint's 3 original questions. Why would we survey employees? Why would we take the time in our very busy days and their very busy days to roll out results? And why would we take action based on what was said, learned during a rollout meeting? Okay, so talk to a few people around you. See what you come up with for the whys. Why do we survey? Why do we roll out? And why do we take action?
You know, so that they're helping us to find that.
I keep forgetting I have to stand here. It's hard for me to stay in one place. All right. What did you come up with? What do you think is the why? Why do we survey them? Why do we ask employees about their level of engagement?
We need to get perspectives beyond our own.
We have a different perspective. We need to listen to theirs because it quite often is very different. Otherwise, why do we survey? Technology hates me.
Is that what the data says?
Yes, just ask Patrick and Nala. Yes, that's what the data says. It hates me. Why else do we survey? Other ideas?
To give employees a voice and not that these are things being done to them, they're a part of the process.
Yes. Their voice matters. And when we do a survey, we're asking them to share their voice. Any other ideas about why we survey, Steve?
We're asking staff to engage and empower kids. This is engaging and empowering our staff.
That's right. PBS for grown-ups. Yeah. We're also saying to them, we value you as an employee. You bring value to our system. It's really important for you to tell us what's inside your head. So it's a way to honor them and value them by asking them to give us some feedback about their work environment. Why would we roll out results to employees?
Acknowledge the scores and have critical conversations on where we can grow.
First of all, be very transparent. Here they are. Here are the scores. Secondly, again, we're honoring them by bringing back to them what they collectively said. That helps us as much as it helps them. People who are outliers in that conversation get to see and hear where they're sort of with the group and where they are the Lone Ranger over here all by themselves. That's helpful to us, where people can see where they fall on that continuum of opinions and perceptions about work environment. We also roll out to make sure employees understand that we're looking at the results. Have you ever taken a survey that you never saw the results of? Happens all the time. I fly on a lot of Delta airplanes and I drive a lot of Avis rent cars. Every time, usually 2 or 3 times a week, I get a survey on my email. Please tell us about your experience with Avis, or please tell us about your experience on your recent flight. Because of the work I do, I faithfully fill those out every time. I've probably filled out 300 of them. Do you think I've ever seen the results? Nope. At some point, I'm going to quit. Because I don't know if anybody's reading them. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to it. I don't know what they're doing. So that causes me to not want to do it anymore. So the fact that we're rolling out to employees says, hey, it's what you did was important. We're sharing it back with you. You know we read it and we're doing something with it. What about taking action? What did you talk about taking action after we roll out the results?
Promotes accountability for the document.
Yes?
It means their feedback matters.
Yes?
It builds trust.
Builds trust.
They've seen how we do something.
Yeah. If we survey our employees, does anything really change in terms of their engagement? Nope. If we roll out results, does anything change? No. The only thing that changes their work environment and their level of engagement is us as leaders taking action based on what we learned in a rollout. So taking action after we do it, because they're watching. Now you've rolled it out. They've had their input. They know what everybody said. So they are looking for a leader change. And when they see change happen, and it's not 50 things, it's one thing. Just do one thing differently. Now you're changing their engagement level. So really, really important. What percentage of employees do you think are engaged in their work? This is not just education, this is all organizations, but education's right in there. What's your guess?
43.
43? 40? 30 to 40? It's around 32 to 35. Some studies are as high as 38, but most of the studies are in the low 30s. So that's that blue on the top right. Look at the huge green. Those are people who are not engaged. Now notice there's a difference between disengaged and not engaged. You know these people. This is about 51%. You know these people. They're sleepwalking. They come to work, don't they? They're there, but they're not there. These are the sleepwalkers. That's the group we really need to target and move. We need to know who those people are, and we need to target them and move them. Because the people in the engaged group, they need more people to be engaged. It takes everybody. Now that dark blue, that's about 17%, which is alarmingly high. Those people are actively disengaged. Not only are they not doing what the rest of the team is doing as a team, what we've decided that we're all doing, they are sabotaging you. You know these people too. You can probably think of one in your school or your department right now. I see a lot of nodding heads. You know these people in the 17%. It's really important to know who they are. Their voice is just as important. They need to participate. Them having that opportunity will move them at least into the non-engaged group. So we're constantly trying to move people up to the next level. Because this is an uphill climb to increase the percentage of engaged employees. Those who are engaged are really carrying the load for a lot of other people. So we need to help them, and that's on us as leaders. So there's been a lot of research done about employee engagement. This happens to be the Journal of Applied Psychology. Wouldn't it be great to get increased productivity out of our people? Increased results, less absenteeism, less turnover. Employee engagement helps us with these things that prevent us from reaching our goals. We know that a teacher with high absentee rate, those kids are not getting the same experience as other students. Even if we have great substitutes, it's not the same experience. And the number is about 10 days. At that 10-day per year mark and beyond, the negative impact on student achievement. So these teachers that are absent 17, 20, 25 days, it's a negative impact on students. And I think that goes across the operations departments as well. When people are absent, it impacts everybody else, and it impacts our results. Here's another one. Some of us are in low turnover departments or schools, and some of us are in high turnover departments or schools. So both of those turnover situations can be improved by increasing employee engagement.
What are we looking at? Explain the vocabulary.
Okay,
I'm not sure I'm understanding the graphic.
here I'll give you an example. In Florida, we have F schools. The turnover rate is much higher in an F school than it is in an A school. So an F school is a high turnover organization. So you can still help it even if you are working in a high stress situation. In a low turnover school, you get even more. You know, those places that people want to work. And then the 37% less absenteeism is across all. I once was principal of a school in downtown Pensacola that was on the verge of being closed down by the state. And out of 62 or 3 teachers, 30 of them had left the previous year. So that was a high turnover situation. Does that help? No? Think about your turnover rate in your school or department. Is it high or low? You have a lot of turnover? Okay, then you're a low turnover organization. People don't want to leave a low turnover organization. It's a good organization, but you still get less turnover. In high turnover organizations, the impact is not as high, but you still have an impact. You still get to keep more of your people.
So is this graphic saying 65% of the employees self-identify as highly engaged in low turnover?
No, that's just your turnover rate. Just the impact on your turnover rate. So that same school where I was the principal, where 30 teachers had left the year before I came, I was lucky enough to bring some people with me from my previous school who said, we'll go and help you turn this place around. So our turnover rate got less and less and less over the next 4 years because we were relatively successful in changing the engagement, the culture at that school from a high turnover place to a low turnover place, which you can do with employee engagement tactics. And I think the absenteeism thing is huge. So what do employees want? Their definition of being engaged with their leader centers on these things. This is what they say. By the way, I will send you this whole presentation and feel free to share with them. You can have it. So some of those things we do pretty well, and some of those things we don't do all that great. You will see this a couple of times in our work together this morning. You've probably seen these before. So what we measure, we value. We talked about that earlier. And we show we're valuing it by the rollout process. Employee engagement results gives us a big opportunity to recognize people. And when we recognize people for certain behaviors, we get more of that behavior from the people being recognized and from other people. There are some people who don't know what right looks like. So when someone is recognized for doing something specific that helps our school or department, other people who didn't know will start to do that same behavior. And then what we permit, we promote. And that's really a conversation for another day about managing performance. But everybody's watching how we manage performance. So when people get their survey, this is what it says. So just read through that. Do you see the why? The why is pretty clear. We always lead with the why. How well does your immediate supervisor provide a work environment where you can do your best work? That's the why. What other important things are in that introduction that employees read it before they take the survey? It's anonymous. There are still people out there who think we can try, let's go to the public library and take it. That's real. That's real. I'm going to borrow my neighbor's phone to take this survey on because I'm pretty certain they'll be able to trace it. And when we have those kinds of comments being made, which they always are, why is that happening? We got to build trust that, yes, it's really, really anonymous. Now, some people self-identify right there in the comment section, but hey, that's on them. So we say some really important things. We really want to know what you think. The owner of this data is your leader, and it's anonymous. So here's the survey. You've all seen it before. Comments. How we handle comments says a lot about us as leaders.
You might get an amen.
Comments are hard. Comments are hard. People are brutally honest. And here's how it feels to us. It feels like all the negative comments are in bold red print, size 48 font. Right? And the positive comments are very faint in about size 8 font, and we can barely see them. That's, again, human nature. That's how we react. That's just how we react. So we really help ourselves when we get our report, we read through the comments, and we put it away. Don't look at it again for another day or so. Then pull it out, read through it. You can only look at the positive comments and start making yourself a list. What am I reading over and over? What are the 2 or 3 things that people said over and over? We're going well. Then do the same for those negative comments. Read through and just do just the negatives and see if there are a couple of things that people point out repeatedly. Don't get fixated on one comment. And some people give you a novella of about a half a page. But each bullet point and they're separated, they used to be separated by bullet points. Now it's a little line in between. That's one person's perspective. So don't get hung up on one person's perspective. That's one person. Look for the themes. What is said over and over and over. That should be what you use to pick out your focus areas. The other thing you're going to want to do is when you get to the rollout, have those themes in your head and see if they hold up during the conversation. While the conversation is taking place, are you hearing the same kinds of things? And that's also where you get that opportunity to reward and recognize. So sometimes we feel like this when we read our comments. Sometimes we feel like that. Sometimes we feel like that. So we have all of these, those are all very natural, and leaders across the country do this, and everybody feels the same way about their comments. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to share with the group in our best and worst times at Marshall, and the years we've done this, I have started to share the comments with I just share, I just put it out there. And I just
Wow.
let them get mad at each other, because they need to see what they write, it's ridiculous, and, I let them know that I code them, and that, like, I'm not, like, personally offended, but I am done harboring that, like, that process to myself. I'm like, y'all wrote it, y'all can read it, and they go nuts, they cannot believe the tone, the word choice in some, positive or negative, but then they also get to see all the compliments, which they love, because so many people are named, you
Yeah.
know? And it's always so difficult for me to find out, like, how do I recognize all the great things that were written in the comments? So I just put it out there. It's been very effective. Oh, yeah, they own it.
Do they find their own themes?
Do they?
Do they? Yeah, I was gonna say I would if you're gonna share
They
comments,
share the why.
then I would definitely charge them with, okay, let's work together to pull out the themes. What are we seeing over and over that's positive? What are we seeing over and over that's an opportunity for improvement? Yeah. So that's a wow, I don't know that I've ever heard of a school sharing the
Well, we share the numbers.
comments. Yeah, we
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get the numerics, they need to get the, qualities.
Yeah. I would caution you that if there's something really ugly about an individual in there, you might pull that out. You know, I mean, occasionally we'll even highlight when we send to superintendent.
It's usually leadership.
Yeah. But sometimes, I mean, I have seen something like Miss Jones is such a cranky, blah 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 secretary. I can't stand her. You know, you might want to pull that out. Now, if 15 people say that, you want to have a conversation with Miss So-and-so, the secretary, about, you know, I just want to talk about the perception that's out there. But, wow. Anybody else do that? Yeah. Wow. So it's important for you to understand as a leader what's in your comments. All right, so this is the quick version of the process. The superintendent rolls out the results to the leadership team. Then schools and departments roll out to their teams. When we communicate why we're having a rollout, that's the first thing we want to do is why did we do the survey? Why are we rolling it out? What are we going to do and how are we going to do it? So this is your process. You want to invite them to the rollout meeting. Introduce the meeting. Why did we do the survey? What was it about? How are we going to use the results? You want to share the top items and the low items from both the district and your school or department. And really the most important part of the conversation is having a conversation around the lowest items and how can we improve. That's where you're going to pull your steps for the action plan. So I brought you, many of you have this or have seen it, and I'm happy to send a digital version, but if you will take a rollout toolkit and people in the front can pass them to the people in the back. Perfect. I have more. If you have extras, just pass them to the row in the back. How many people still need one? Okay, we all pass the stack back to them. Y'all are good? What? Anybody else? Sure.
Making a fool.
So this is the whole rollout toolkit. We're working today on employee engagement, but all the rollout processes are in here. Look on page 9. Page 9 is the most important page in the book to me. This is your cheat sheet for your leader stance during your rollout. This is who you want to be. You want to stop yourself from being reactive and stay in the proactive leader stance. Critically, critically important. This is not the time to have an excuse to try to explain someone's comment. You are simply listening. It's hard to do. Hard to do. But those proactive behaviors on the right side of that chart, and being able to listen to whatever comes and not show emotion and not get upset, and most of all, not try to explain away, because people will stop talking and you want people to talk. We're not trying to fix anything at the rollout meeting. We're just listening. Look at the bottom of that page 9. We want to encourage as much participation as possible. We want to say things like, thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that. I hadn't thought about that. Let me write that down. That it's a non-judgmental comment that pretty much just says, I heard you. I'm capturing that. But not like, oh yeah, you're right. You know, you're not agreeing with people and you're not disagreeing with people. You're just collecting input. And it's perfectly okay to ask a follow-up question. Can you give me an example of that? Could you say more about that? And you also want to keep it focused on forward motion. We want to make it better. So we're not trying to rehash everything that's happened in the last 15 years in our school or department. So we want to keep people focused on, so if that score was a bit higher, what would I be saying or doing as the leader to get people to give you potential solutions instead of just bashing? Because some people will want to do that. So we as the leaders have to kind of own the process while it's going on and be very careful that we are leading it in a positive direction. So on pages 10, 11, and 12, those are actual scripts. Sample keywords and phrases. So just take a minute and look through there. You might want to take your pen or your highlighter. If you see a keyword or a key phrase that feels right to you, I could say that. I can see myself saying that. Just star it or draw a line under it. These phrases are helpful because it keeps you in that leader stance and it keeps the people who are participating in your rollout focused on why we're doing this. Anybody see one they like?
Page 12,
It's
it's important to me.
important to me. That's a great one. It's important to me. So you're saying, I value what you had to say. This process is important. I'm sincerely interested in what you have to say. One of my favorites is on the middle of page 10. I love that paragraph that's about, I consider the results of this survey as my report card. As your leader, I look at this as my report card. I have the responsibility to make sure we have the best people in this department or school, and that those people, you, are satisfied with your work and your work environment. That is powerful coming out of a leader's mouth. Very powerful. So before you do your rollout, I would encourage you to read through these couple of pages. Find you some key phrases that are powerful like that feel natural to you, or write your own, and be ready to use those because they will have an impact. Okay, so at your rollout, you're going to present the results, top and bottom, for your department or school, as well as the district. You're going to invite the input, take all the suggestions, thank them for participating in the survey, thank them for coming to the rollout meeting, and explain to them that you're going to create an action step and have them evaluate the meeting. So those are the basic steps. And this is the part we want to have consistent across the district. That we're all doing these basic steps. All right? So we're going to do one right now. So you can see. I'm your leader. I sent you this email. What do you notice about the email?
It's welcoming.
It's welcoming.
Voluntary.
It's voluntary. They don't have to come. Note to self, notice who doesn't come. They're actively disengaged.
They've read the results and they trust you.
They should participate. If they don't come, I would go to them and say, what is it about the rollout meeting that you don't find valuable? I'm really interested in your opinion. I think it's really important that we all hear this conversation together, that everybody hears what everybody else has. Encourage them.
It's always been mandatory. That would be a huge
Well-
shift for us. Correct.
It's part of something.
Yeah, and a lot of people do it as part of something else.
Right.
We're already having this meeting for 2 hours. We're going to take 30 or 45 minutes and do our rollout.
It'd be cool to make it voluntary and see who comes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So the purpose is there, and you're telling people what you're going to do. I'm going to share the results with you, and we are going to celebrate our strengths and address our opportunities for improvement. So you've got your why, your what, and your how right there in your email. Okay, so we're going to do a little role play here. I'm the leader, and this is our rollout meeting. Thank you for coming today. I can see that most of our staff has made it to the meeting today. I appreciate you being here. We recently have done sort of a refresher on our results rollout here in Janesville. So you might see some things that might be a little bit different today than what you've seen in past rollout. One of the things we're doing in Janesville is we're trying to get very consistent about our leader behavior in service to our employees. So all the leaders across the district participated in this results rollout reset. And so we're here today at our rollout meeting, and I'm looking forward to sharing results with you and having some conversation about how we can get better. So the district overall mean, you know that scale is 1 to 5, was 4.21 overall. So items 1 through 14 are standard nationwide items. So the mean on those was a 4.15. Then here in Janesville, we have our own set of items that we've added to the national survey. So those items are D1 through D10, which stands for District Item 1 and so forth. So that was a 4.29, making our overall mean 4.21 as a district. The highest scoring items here in Janesville were my principal or supervisor demonstrates genuine concern for my welfare, 4.31. When the superintendent rolled out these results to us at a leadership team meeting, he was very proud of that employees in our district feel like the leaders really have genuine concern for their welfare. My principal or supervisor gives me good processes and resources to do my job. That was 4.28. And we talked as a leadership team about why we thought that was such a high score. And then if given a choice, I would recommend that a parent select this district for his or her child at 4.22. We're super proud of that number right there. Anytime employees are willing to recommend, that means they're excited about what's going on in our district. So we were very excited about that at the leadership team meeting. Okay, I'm stepping out of role play for a minute. What did I just do when I rolled out the highest items for the district? Managed up. I managed up the superintendent, I managed up the leadership team. I also gave my employees a peek into that conversation. We had a conversation with the superintendent as leaders, and here's what we talked about. All right. Any questions about that part so far? I've lost the clicker. Oh, all right. So the lowest 3 items for the district, and you can see that 2 of these 3 are what we call the communication items. So C3, open and honest communication is an important part of the culture in my school district. 3.97. My principal or supervisor consults me on the decisions that affect my job. 3.96. My school district supports honest two-way communication between supervisors and employees. 3.92. So when the superintendent met with the leaders and we talked about these 3, we really talked about the fact that communication is really, really important. And so the feedback that we're getting from our employees is that that's a place for us to continue to work, is having honest two-way communication, giving people input. So we spent a good bit of time talking about that and how we might do a better job as leaders with the communication and input pieces. So that's the district overview. What we really want to do today is look at our school data. So our school mean was a 3.87, which was a bit lower than the district overall mean. And I want to go through our highest items here one at a time because I'm really interested in the why behind these scores. So our first one was principal or supervisor demonstrates genuine concern for welfare, 4.01. And that, if you remember, that's one of the district items too. So what is it that as your leader I do or say that you think caused that to be a high item? Yes.
You round with me and you get information about my family and you know what's going on regularly in my life. And you just, come in and make time to make me feel valued.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody else?
Promote work-life balance.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
So you encourage us to work hard while we're at work, but also accept the fact that we have lives outside of working hours and honor time to spend with family and friends.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
You take the time to actually ask if I'm doing okay, how are things going.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right, let's look at that second one. My principal or supervisor provides good processes and resources for me to do my job. What is it that I'm saying or doing that causes that score to be high? Yes.
Come into my classroom to see how things are going, seeing if the kids have the resources they need.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have an idea about why that scored 3.90, one of our higher scores?
The processes are predictable,
Can you say more about that?
so things don't change. So the expectations about what we do, when we do it, how we do it are consistent.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have an idea? Okay, I'm stepping out. Why am I doing this part?
It lets you know what you're doing that's working, so you should keep those things.
Exactly. I gotta keep doing this. whatever people are saying. So I'm gonna go through all three of them. Notice I'm allowing a little bit of silence. If I was doing this for real, I would spend more time allowing for silence. Yes,
I'd say by writing it down, you're validating that you're really listening.
right. Make sure you're very transparent in your writing process. Now, some of the people are pretty high tech and they do something like they have the assistant principal with a Google Doc open on the screen, and so everybody can still see it, but it's being typed in at the same time that it's being talked about. I kind of prefer the old-fashioned chart and people actually seeing my handwriting. I'm the leader. I'm up here listening and taking notes. But you're exactly right. I'm valuing them because I'm writing down what people say. So I want to keep doing these things, and I'm valuing what people are saying. What else is happening? Think about the actively disengaged people. What are they hearing?
Counter.
They are hearing the engaged people. They are hearing things that may cause one or two of them to go, yeah, she really does do that. So you can start to change the perception of some of the disengaged or not engaged people just because they are hearing people talk about what it is that you do well as a leader. So don't blow off this part. This is really important. You get a lot of clues about what you do well that people value. So you know what to keep doing. And the other people who don't value your leadership quite as much are hearing that. Hearing employees say it. So you do that for all three of those. And then you say, so now we want to talk about the lowest three items. I want to tell you guys that this is hard for me to look at our lowest items here because I take ownership of these. This is really about my leadership and the work environment that I provide for you. So I'm really interested in what you have to say. I want to be a better leader. I want you to have a better work environment. And I hope that you will help me do that. So I want to go through our lowest items and have you give me some input. So our lowest item was my principal or supervisor-led staff meetings make efficient use of time and are productive. So if you think about our meetings that we have as a staff, if that score was a 5 instead of a 3.30, what would I be doing? What are some things that would make them more effective? Yes.
Start the meeting on time.
Start on time. Thank you.
Have a defined purpose for the meeting?
Define purpose. Okay. Did you say an agenda? Okay,
Clear
thank
agenda.
you.
Have handouts organized and hand it out efficiently.
Okay.
Some things might be sent in advance to save time when we're in the meeting, like something to read or something to watch
Okay.
beforehand.
Allow for reflection and collaboration.
Okay.
How about reduce items that are individual, like things on the agenda should be for everyone involved?
Oh, okay. Anybody else have an idea?
And stay on point. Don't let the meeting get derailed.
Okay.
End on point.
Okay. This is helpful. Thank you for sharing with me. Now what we'll do is we'll move on to the second item, which is my principal or supervisor sets clear expectations for performance. That was a 3.44. But I'm gonna leave this one up here, and if you come up with another idea that you'd like to add to this first one, we can always go back and add it. So let's move on now to the second one. All right, I'm stepping out of role play. What did you notice about taking the feedback and the input? Yes,
You didn't comment, you just wrote it down.
no comment. No comment. I could have said, well, the reason I don't start it in time is because you guys are never in the room on time. That's not on me, that's you. So leaders So staying in that leader stance is really important. Yeah. So just take it. I saw another hand right here somewhere. Yes.
You're starting to develop your action steps too, to correct the
Right.
area.
So I'm getting some potential action steps. What were you gonna say,
But
Patrick?
you were actually, making sure you wrote down what you heard from.
Yes.
You clarified if you didn't quite hear. You said clear agenda.
It's perfectly okay to say, can you give me an example? Can you say more about that? In fact, I almost did it right here. Reduce individual items. Put things that are for everybody on the agenda. But I stopped myself. Because if I had asked that question, I might have put her on the spot. Because she might have felt obligated to say, well, you know that one thing, that was just about Steve. That wasn't about everybody else. Which would have been not good. So you have to use your professional judgment and when to stop. But sometimes you need an example. You need somebody to give you more information. And two good ones are give me an example of that and can you say more about that? They're non-judgmental, but they're good questions. Yes.
The way that you pose the question for feedback, put it in a positive light rather than opening doors for just like a big
Right.
session.
Now, somebody, let's role play this real quickly. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody push back. Let's pretend like we're still doing this right here. And somebody says something that is not quite as positive. Somebody play with me.
You're disorganized.
You're disorganized.
Can you tell me what it would look like if I were more organized? Flip it. Whatever comes, and that's gonna happen. There are people on your staff, they wanna get you. And there's somebody's gonna say something like that. We have never had an organized meeting ever in this department. Okay, so what would it look like if we would have an organized meeting? Can you describe that for me? So if that happens, just in that same tone of voice, just flip it to forward. What does the future look like? And it's better. It's better in the future. What does it look like?
What
Make
do you
sense?
typically get as a reaction to that?
Those loud voices, they're really not interested in helping. They're interested in getting a reaction out of you. So the more you don't react, now if it goes on and on and on and he makes 20 comments, I might say something like this. I appreciate all of the comments that have been made about the importance of organization. I'm really interested in other voices. I would love to know how others feel about this. So what I'm gonna ask you to do right now is to talk at your table. We're gonna take 2 minutes, talk at your table with just the people seated around you about how you think I could be more organized. And then I'm gonna ask each table to share out one thing. I have shut him down. He's done. So have some little tricks in your back pocket. The pause, all voices are important. Let's shift a little bit. That works. Another good trick is sticky notes. Have sticky notes out and say, if everybody would take 2 sticky notes and write down your 2 ideas about how my meetings could be better organized, then I'm going to collect those and then I'm going to read them out. So everybody gets 2 shots. He gets his 2 shots, but he only gets 2. So there are tricks to doing that. So have an idea ready for how you can manage it if things go awry. Okay, so we would continue on until up here I would have 1 for meetings, I would have 1 for clear expectations, and I would have 1 for consults me on decisions that affect my job. Then I would ask this question. You know, we've got 3 posters up here and there are about 22 things across the 3 posters. For me to really be focused on improving your work environment, I really need to figure out what are the 1 or 2 most important things. So I've given everybody a couple of dots. And we're gonna take a little break here, and during our break, I'd like for you to come up and put your 2 dots on the 2 things across these 3 posters that are most important to you for us to improve. That will help me figure out what are the most important things collectively across the group, and then I'll pick, those are the 2 things I'll work on. And then I'll bring back in a couple of weeks an action plan where I've outlined what I'm gonna do to improve those 1 or 2 things. And what I'm gonna do is ask a small team of you to sit with me to make sure, I mean, you'll be able to see what all the votes are when we come back from our break. But I'm gonna ask a small team to sit with me and make sure that I'm getting it right. So I'm gonna ask Patrick and Donna and Steve and my friend back here from Parker, I'm sorry, I don't, thank you, and Chris to sit on my team. And I'll get with you guys and within the next week, we'll have a short meeting, review the posters, make sure I've captured it right, and we'll come up with my action plan, then I'll bring that back to the larger group. So thanks for participating in the rollout today. Your feedback was really, really important to me. And I wanna make this a better place for you to work. Thanks for coming today. Okay, so what did I do there at the end?
Thank them for their time.
Thanked them for their time, acknowledged it,
Communicated next steps.
told what the next steps were gonna be,
Summarize the purpose.
summarize the purpose. If I had, it just depends on where your culture is in your school or department. If I had 5 people like Chris, and I had endured a lot of pushback during the rollout, I would pick very publicly, like I just did, I would pick some people that I know are with me, and I would pick a Chris. And everybody gets to hear it. She's picking her small team who's gonna sit with her and review this and help her with her action plan. And she's not afraid to put a naysayer on that committee. That does 2 things for you. Everybody sees that you do that you don't fear the naysayers. And there are a lot of people who are like Chris but who didn't say anything. They will participate in the meeting after the meeting. Right? So the minute my meeting is over, they're gonna run and say to Chris, so what happened? What y'all doing there? What'd she say? He's been in there. He's heard it all. There are no secrets. Without a Chris on my committee to review my data that I got from you guys, there might be some rumblings about, she didn't really look at those posters. But Chris is in there with us. He hears the whole conversation. So that helps you shut down the naysayers. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
So in the past,
Yes?
my survey, the questions regarding the superintendent have been consistently the lowest ones on the survey.
Congratulations, you're in the vast majority of all school districts across the country.
I noticed that you did not use those for that. Should it, I mean, I've had a tough time, like, what is my effectiveness with that as a leader? I know the managing up piece, but it almost seems like we might select the 3 lowest that we have the most control of.
Great question, and you're exactly right. You want the conversation to be about your leadership with your people. We could spend the whole 45 minutes talking about Steve's 3 lowest items because they generally are. Why do you think that is? Why are superintendent items usually the lowest ones?
Remove, a level of remove.
They don't know Steve, they know you. The buck stops here. Steve's in charge, let's just blame it on Steve. And a lot of that is about communication. How do we carry back to our schools and departments Steve's message? So that's important, but that's a conversation for Steve to have with you guys at the leader level. But what you want to do, and you can say that, if you want to. I've pulled out the 3 lowest items that are about us here in our department. And here they are. So those are the ones we're going to talk about. Now these items, see these C1 and C3? We used to not pull those out, but we're starting to do that now because communication is such an important issue, and It's a sneaky issue. When you think the problem is something else, it's not. It's about communication over and over and over again. So we have started pulling in these from the district level if they end up in the highest or the lowest, but not the superintendent items, because the conversation is about somebody who's not in the room. It's not helpful. And I think you just say that. So the conversation we're gonna have today are about my 3 lowest items as your supervisor or as your principal. That's what I wanna have this conversation about. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other questions that might go into that too, that is probably gonna, we would have the flexibility not to say, hey, here's the bottom 3. I mean, when I look at all of these results and I compare that with the comments, I mean, these are the lowest 3 that I have selected.
Yeah.
That I think we have.
Yeah.
I mean, and if they have the entire results, I mean.
Yeah,
give them
I mean,
the
they can.
Opportunity to say, well, why aren't we focusing?
Yeah. And I would say that's for the superintendent and the leadership team. That's where that conversation is taking place. We're going to have a conversation about what's happening in our department or in our school. And so here are the 3 lowest items from our department or our school. Because you're right, that could turn into a bash the superintendent conversation. And we would be having that same conversation over and over and over and over and over. And Steve's not even there to hear it. So it's not helpful. And just tell people that. You know, I want to get better. I'm doing a rollout in my department because I want to be better. So here's the ones we're going to work on. But it's not a secret what all the items are. But what we choose to roll out are the ones that are closest to our school or department that we can have the most impact. Okay? So, but those communication ones sometimes pop up in there, and we have started using those. Yes?
2 things. In the past, I have ruled out what the 3 overall lowest are, and sometimes that's where the superintendent ones have come into play. And we don't really discuss those. I then move on to, I don't say we're not going to discuss those. I just say, here's our 3 lowest overall. And then I go to the next slide that says, and here's the 3 that are Monroe specific that we can work on together.
You could do that.
They see them, but yet we don't spend a lot of
Yeah.
time talking about something that we can't change or that person isn't in the room.
Yeah.
The other
You could
thing
do that, and you'll see in the newer format of the results, Julie Kunselman is actually listing the top 5. That's too many to roll out. The top 5 and the bottom 5, you'd be there all day. I would still pull out 3, and so you'll be able to see when the superintendent items or the communication items or one of your district-specific items ends up either in the top or the bottom, you can see that. But I would just you really want to focus on what you can impact the most. Yeah.
My other question is, in the past, it was great to see your role play today, because I'm one of those people that I've had some tutor training, but I had never had an official training on how to do a rollout.
Oh, well,
So
good.
This was super interesting to me today. But in the past, I'd moved to either for time's sake, or I started to think, geez, I might get better feedback if they don't have to answer directly to me. And so what I've asked them to do is in their professional learning communities of their grade level teams, if they could talk amongst themselves as a team, add their comments to a Google document
That everybody has access to?
that everybody has access to. I mean, do you have an opinion on that? Because I do see the value in what you just did
Yeah.
here versus that, but I also think there might be a place for that also, or?
There is value in the conversation that we just had and people getting to hear and see what other people, it's hard for them to see my disposition, my leader stance in a Google Doc. I can play my role of I'm a willing leader. I want to be better. I can present that message a lot easier in person. However, a lot of people have gone to sending them out ahead of time and having people put their thoughts in a Google Doc, and we still need to have the conversation. We still need to share with everybody. You know, I hope you had a chance to review the Google Doc that we've been working on for a week now since I shared the results with you. We're going to talk about it at our meeting on Thursday afternoon. And so then you come in and you're prepared with, here's what I got out of the Google Doc. Any other comments about this or that? I think there's still value in the conversation.
Maybe I was thinking maybe I would get more honest feedback if they didn't have to say it right to my face. But like I said, I just saw a lot of value in what you've just done
Yeah.
today.
I think there is value in them saying it to your face. They've had the opportunity to say it
I
anonymously.
was trying to save them, to say, you don't have to say it to me.
Yeah.
You can be mean on this piece of paper.
But they've said it anonymously
If it means enough
in the
to them,
comments.
and they feel like they can have some
Yeah.
way to change
Yeah.
something.
And we are we're building confidence that people can have an honest conversation with their leader. So the more that they get to watch you do this and how you're sincerely seeking input, positive, and how could I be better, their confidence grows. And this is part of engagement, is that relationship with the leader. And for them to be able to say something like that to your face in a group setting, they are tiptoeing down that path of trusting you more, of being able to have honest conversation with you. And then that turns around and impacts your rounding and performance conversations and a lot of other pieces, because now they feel better about you as accepting of input. So I would still do it in front of them.
This is really difficult to do, because it's really difficult to remain completely neutral, lead the organization, be thrown, not knowing what's coming at you.
It is.
Secondary, we're in a different place, and I always will ask my leaders to dean of students, AP, like, number one person has a job of reading the room, the other person has a job of like saving Taylor from Taylor. Like,
oh, sure.
Like, that's an important job, like, because like when I get off the rails, it's so, I mean, like, it's something we do. There's
Yes.
a lot of people in that room, that's not 19 people in that room, it is.
Yeah.
And so for elementary people, if you would like a secondary, or you want an administrator, like, to help to be your like person, just to observe, because they will see things
Yes.
you will not see. And
Very true.
I have done damage without having,
Right.
not knowing that I read that person wrong, or what I heard and what they said were like two different things, and man, that's really difficult to do
Yeah.
effectively. And I just would offer, Mike is totally available. He is trained and not by the
That's a really good point, and we call those critical friends. And it is strongly encouraged to have a critical friend. That could be your assistant principal. That could be somebody from the district level, somebody on your leadership team, and have a signal. If you're concerned that you're going to go off the rails and lose your leadership stance, Carol Burnett works well. Somebody in the back of the room, you're doing it, you're reacting. Get back over there and proactive, not reactive. So that is perfectly acceptable and highly encouraged, especially for people who haven't done it a lot. Get somebody in there with you and be very transparent about what their role is. I've asked Mike to come today and help me. He is going to help me make sure that I recognize all voices, that everybody gets a chance to participate, and that I don't spend too much time on any one thing or get fixated in any one area. So I appreciate Mike being here, and he's going to be helpful to me so I can be a better facilitator today. Just put it out there. Okay, good, great questions. Great questions. All right. So this, how many of you are doing this? The feedback on how you did on the rollout. Okay, I brought a stack of those just in case you don't have one.
Is there a reason why that's not online? Yeah. You can make that.
Yeah, a lot of people have made them. So if you need one of these, we'll just, here are some, y'all can just take a few and pass it back. This is important, 2 reasons. You get feedback on how you did as a facilitator, because the questions are pretty clear. They told me what it said, yes or no. I have the opportunity to provide feedback. We discussed and prioritized the next step based on the meeting. I feel action will be taken by my leader. They also get the opportunity to provide feedback straight all the way up to Steve. I feel action will be taken by the superintendent and assistant superintendents. What we like to encourage is not only that leaders look at those, when you get them back, you review them, bring them with you to a leadership team meeting and talk about how it went at your different schools and locations. What did you learn? What did people say? What might you do differently next time? Really important one. What might you do differently next time? So that's how you get better as a facilitator. In some districts, they actually have a person who's in charge of the forms. The leader leaves the room, everybody fills out their form, it goes in that envelope, it's sealed and sent straight to the next level of leader. That's certainly an option. But you guys have been doing it a good long time. I think you might be interested in having the conversation with each other about how it went. Thank you. All right. And then the most important part, of course, you got to take action. You got to do something. Okay? It can't just be, we had a great rollout. We got a lot of input. We prioritized with our dots. I came back and shared the 1 or 2 things I'm going to do differently to get better in this area. Then I got to actually do it. So the action piece matters a lot. All right, let's take a break. Let's take 10 minutes.
Well, I worry about doing it like.
I don't know.
And I gotta tell you, you know, like, that's from, that's a tough one. I gotta, you know,
You want me to go get my blanket? Leaders in the room. Mr. Jaworski might be able to help, you know, but they.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, because of course I'm fielding those questions from my team, I'm like, it's not time to worry yet, and I'll.
Right. Right. So that's what I said, I think it's our most public facing things that are, it's our intent to get, you know, a big portal. I'm glad that that was the answer.
But most of them are on positive and retirement. It's a small.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
I remember with our breakouts, our learning thing. One I was thinking. So you gotta leave this breakout session department. I'm here to.
I'm over there.
Yeah.
Falls out on.
That might. She, if she enjoys being in that role. So like contrary, argumentative, nothing's cool, everything's a joke, or it's like.
We'll have to see.
Not an email.
Yeah, so she's sort of fast.
I didn't pay attention, and she shared really.
I haven't done it.
I wonder though how she originally framed it to them.
Yeah.
Like, did she say?
Good, how are you?
Or did she say, Matt and Allison, I said, no, and it's all by yourself, something, and.
So for the first probably 10 minutes, in that TV, she kept asking me questions. I said, this is your department, if you wanna make it good as a whole department, basically the only advice I gave her is if you wanna make it good, then start this priority of you, or this standard review because of PLC, and that's the section. But then I went into her. I think she kept putting the questions back on the. But then Tom gave me some feedback after.
Hey guys, I just need clarification. I just wanna make sure for my website, do I need, I don't know.
No, because what we're gonna do, well, not right now anyway. And even if you did, there's a number of ways we, but here's the thing, so we can keep it as it is. We can incorporate the information into more of an actual page within the district site. I know,
I just
there's,
didn't know if I needed to.
no, I wouldn't worry about anything that, what I wanted everyone to remember is just that if you have historical documents and stuff that you wanna save, we're not necessarily bringing those in. We're not keeping it in, you know, so any of that stuff, just make sure you have your files, you put the way you want them, and you find what you need. Anything that becomes something for sure needs transfer, transfer it. But if not, so we will have to, there's a lot of communication that I have there, so, sorry, I don't have better detail.
No, I mean, that's, you know, you're telling me that I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, you don't.
So I like that, you know.
Yeah, I'll make your coat on.
I'm here. Here? Oh, that's awesome.
You like this? Tonight, as long as I have everything set up, is kind of. But I do have from Mandy. Mandy sent a file for the general deputy tonight, so I will get it loaded.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Editorial.
Your plans.
There's a couple ways to look at it. We can get all.
Hey Ashley, I know you and Kay are working on that,
What bothers me
trip up to Harvard, right? We just got the pieces of water. Are they expecting him to come? Yeah. Good. Walks up.
That's
When did we lose our board was there,
Right.
And they don't understand the school.
Yeah.
They understand.
That's the thing.
But that's just that part of it. They were calling up the school board, not the school board.
Oh, very much.
So.
And one way you make a teacher.
They're not doing it. I have the
And
stuff.
let's be honest, there's some truth, there's some truth. to
There's
what you said about
truth.
that. There is.
And so I'm just kind of thinking. It's
Am I
a.
saying the
No,
right
I think you're
person?
doing great.
Okay, every time I get way over here, I'm like, oh.
I feel like I didn't follow anybody, I don't feel like
Medium
we
list,
talked to
We
you.
wanted to see
see that that's out there. I don't know. I've never seen it. Because Kathy is there, like, contacted me yesterday saying, who was this?
Yeah, I can imagine.
The force behind this resolution.
But was she contacting you about that one or about the new one?
Oh my God.
This was about the federal tax.
Maybe taking the
Oh,
new
wait,
one,
she's talking about
he was talking about the vote.
Good.
That's it.
And I like how she
There's more to come.
I'm sure.
I know, Robin makes fun of me because I go.
No, if they.
But visually, but it heavily creates my
Now I'm gonna see it
ability to
say, you know,
follow.
there's a
So I
map.
think part of
Now,
this is
that's
Yeah.
like, it's the opinion of the editorial board that our board is-
I don't know that it would matter.
Yeah, I try to be careful because I don't want to confuse people when I'm teaching, coaching, and when I'm role playing, so I try to call it out, I'm not always successful. And I have had people say, are you role playing or are you just teaching us right? I say, oh, sorry.
Pieces of our message that we could really tell.
And have
Then why does anybody
this,
have-
recording of
Right.
it, somebody
Why
might
does
want to
anybody
go,
send an
because I
email,
think
make a
tone
call?
of voice
Why
matters,
does anybody-
pausing
Right,
matters.
because it's, if they do it again.
I mean, I don't know your personality, but
we
you're
like-
being thoughtful about everything you do.
And these examples are all just all of you.
Anyway.
The positive terms and negatives. They're not,
Because if I see
they're
that happen,
just
you know, if there's a second
It was like, I mean, high school teachers have
and that's
view
so.
that they don't get.
And I tell something like that, and then they're like, well, I tell superintendent, you know, it's just.
Let it
And it was,
For now.
because like, when I
I tell you what I think, you know, I.
You should go home and help them.
so. Right.
And then put it away, let it sit there, and go back
Singing
and
songs to
But then, because it's part of it is painful.
No.
And you tend to just look at the positives, and you get all hung up on that. I think I know who said that. Oh, yeah, I think I know. I think that was Joey.
It is.
Not my fault.
In my head, it's like sharing.
No,
with
it's
your
kinda like,
friends. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a song that you would just use as.
You don't want to.
a topic.
I mean, it's embarrassing to be told, and yet you wouldn't want to try and not like
Aren't you glad you
So in
did?
other words,
You could have just continued on as a little bit. Aren't you glad you did? I think it's especially good. Because that's what makes us real people supposed to lead. And they will see that we have to encourage them just like they did. And all we're doing is modeling what we expect them to do. We expect you to take feedback from there and get better. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do.
just sort of know.
I've seen their leader in my head be vulnerable, be willing to.
Yeah, it is one that will definitely stick in your head when you're growing.
Well, and I think that's. It's nice that Taylor was. They're so, I would say outside of here, they're so undervalued by people, and I find that so valuable. So, and just, how can you how will you even know, would you even know where
How would you know?
How do you know where you're planning on, you don't even know.
She still gets 30%.
Otherwise, your leadership's living in their own little head.
Exactly.
And you do what you think is right, but you might not be
I've
doing
sent her
right
an email that said, hey.
You don't know. That's it.
And she said, no, because I figured I'd do this.
Do y'all have people who aren't here
There are,
that need, okay. Because I can leave some of these, where the people who aren't here.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
I'll take this stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know it. I
Is that for this next one?
Yes.
Take anything else back?
I was gonna say, you could take your stack and you can have all the others.
I'm gonna take, oh, okay, I was just gonna.
Oh, okay, good, good, thank you. Okay, are we ready? Did everybody get a new bagel, a new water, a new cup of coffee? Okay. Well, I talked to a few of you on the break, so I hope that was helpful. Taking another walk through a results rollout and what you do. And again, we're not talking about everybody's got to stand up and read right from the script. You want it to be your individual rollout, but we need to have the same consistent elements that we're all doing so employees have a similar experience. That's how we get to consistency of leader practice. Consistency of leader practice takes us to better results. So, good deal. All right, so change management. Steve and I had some conversations about all the changes that are going on, and change is hard. Change is exhausting. It's very, very hard. And leaders have to be the leader even in change. So I wanted to walk you through, Quint talked about this for a long, long time, and I didn't really understand it until I got a hold of another book that helped me understand the book, Switch. So have you guys read the book Switch? Okay, so the Heath brothers were Quint's guests at our recent, he calls it Intracon in Pensacola for entrepreneurs, but he lets the student group folks participate as well. And I'll just apologize in advance. The next 5 or 6 slides have a lot of writing on them, but you will get these. And this is like the Cliff Notes version of Switch. And even more importantly, most of this came from a book called Stories from Switch, which is really how it helped me understand. But Switch talks about why is it so hard to change any kind of organization or to change anything really. Why is it so hard to change anything about ourselves and about our work? And if you read through that paragraph and start to think about that rational mind versus that emotional mind, we all have both minds in us all the time, right? We have that rational side. We have that emotional side. We have to learn to put those two pieces together, to have our two minds work together. And we have to help the people we lead be able to do that. So, Quint for years talked about the elephant, the rider, and the path, and he would say it over and over and over again, and I would never get it. And I read Switch probably 3 times, and I never got it. But when I read the book Stories from Switch, now I get it. So I've pulled out some of those pieces into these slides. So the rider, that is that rational piece. Notice how tiny the rider is compared to the elephant. That emotional side is a lot more powerful. It's a lot faster at the trigger than our rational mind. And unless we have the parts working together, the rider's going to lose every time. So understanding if people are behaving in their rational mind or their emotional mind, and we fall in that same group, where are we reacting from? Are we reacting from our rational side or our emotional side? And in times of change, what's our go-to? Emotions. Every time. That's where we go. So as leaders, we have to manage our own reactions and help those we lead. So the trick is in shaping the path. What are we doing to convince the elephant to go down that path? What are we doing to shape the path, which makes the rider's job a lot easier. Successful change happens when leaders are able to do these three things at the same time. First of all, if they understand rational mind, emotional mind, and the importance of shaping the path. And then if they can manage to do all of these three things at once, which sounds impossible, but it's really not once you start watching for, is that elephant? Is that rider? Is that path? And you'll get better at this. We just talked about this yesterday. But we've got to be able to do all three things at once. Changing someone's behavior is not easy. I think the second example there, when you walk in a teacher's classroom, what happens? Do they behave differently when you're in there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're shadowing them, watching them, they're likely to be behaving differently than they behave when you leave and go to another place. And same goes for employees who are doing any kind of work. They behave differently when the leader is present and when the leader is not. So we can't change their behavior by our presence, can we? No, we can't be there all the time. So we have to influence them. And a lot of that is about the why and about communication and support and engagement. We have to influence them to want to do that on their own, even when we're not there. So one definition is those highly engaged people are the people who are doing the right thing for the right reason, even when no one else is watching. So getting people to want to go there. So the problem becomes often we have a heart and mind disagreement. We have a rider-elephant disagreement. And helping leaders understand where are people reacting from in this moment in time and how can I help them put the pieces together. So this tension is there all the time. It's within us every moment of every day. And it's also within all the people we lead. Everybody has a rider and an elephant. If we are not careful and learn to recognize when people are living in their elephant, the rider is going to always lose. You would think people would always be rational. They're not. They're not. So being rational doesn't always get the job done. We've got to pay attention to that emotional side. Here are some, just read the second paragraph and see if you see yourself in any of those scenarios, if you've ever had an experience like that. Have you ever had any of those experiences? If you're like me, I've probably been on 50 or 60 diets in the last 40 years. And I've probably gained and lost that same 20, 25 pounds. Oh, I see people nodding. You're like me. Because I get really motivated and I do something and I think, I've got this. I've finally got this licked. I've got that 20 pounds off and this time it's going to stay off. But it never does. It always comes back. So we all have had this experience in one way or another. So willpower is our rational mind. And at some points, when we're on a diet, we have a lot of willpower, don't we? And then at other points, we're like, oh shoot, I'm eating this ice cream cone. I'm just eating it. I'm eating it right now, I don't care. So we've all been there. Athletes go through this. Everybody goes through this. This is human nature, this constant conflict. So understanding this helps us with leaders. The rider can win for a certain period of time. And for me, I equate that to willpower can win for a certain period of time. And then willpower just gets tired. It gets exhausted. And then who wins? That emotional side. That elephant comes in there. How long can we just wait it out? How long? The rider can't win in the end. It won't happen. That elephant weighs 6 tons. So the rider's going to get tired. So motivating the elephant to go down the right path is very, very critical if we want to stay on course. This is the part that was the big aha for me in Stories from Switch. We say, oh, people are just resistant to change. No, they don't have clarity. This is going back to communication, and I think you guys have great opportunities in those communication items that popped up in the bottom 5 across the district. And this is really important because you guys are going through a lot of changes. So clarity is critical. And people do give up or appear to be resistant because they're not clear. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? So that why, what, how? Why are we changing this in Janesville? We've done it X way for so many years. Why are we doing this now? So the why, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? So the more we can bring clarity, and it feels like over communication, but you know what Quint says? There's no such thing as over communication. We got to tell people what we're doing and the why, the what, and the how. Then we have to tell them again and again and again and circle back to it continually. We have to continually come back to avoid this lack of clarity that shows up as resistance or laziness. When we're doing that, when we're focused on clarity, we're appealing to people's rational mind. People can understand the why and the what and the how. When we're not clear, they slide over into their elephant self. And they'd rather say, I guess this will pass. If you just stick around long enough, they'll stop doing this. So their emotional side will get in there and start winning. So we can't get upset with people when they're resistant. We have to think, is it because I haven't been clear? We're not sending a clear message? Are they exhausted? How can I help people get back in their rational mind? One way to do that is to shape the path. Shaping the path is really the secret weapon. Because we want to look like these guys. We want to all be rowing in the same direction. If we can get all 3 things operating at the same time, rational, we have a direction where we're headed in, so we've got a driver. Our elephant is motivated. We know why we're doing this and we're willing to do it. And the path is shaped. Then we get to this place. And that's where we're going. The trick to this is one thing at a time, being crystal clear. That's why when we do results rollout, how many things do we might have 30 things on all our papers. But how many things in the end are we going to do? 1 or 2. They're often very related. It's often 2 actions, but they're related. So 1 or 2. Do you remember when Healthy Eat Well? Some of you are a lot younger than I am. When this whole thing first came out and they said Cheetos were unhealthy and French fries were not good for you. I mean, that was, for some of us who had been drinking saccharin Kool-Aid since we were 2 years old, that was like a big old deal. I remember my mother crying, like, oh, I'm killing my kids. When the Kool-Aid first came out with, ooh, that's bad stuff. We need to stop doing that. But in the early days when people started realizing, this is like in the early 60s, ooh, our diet is unhealthy. We need to do something about that. So they tried all of these things to try to convince people to eat a healthier diet. And it was an utter and complete failure. Until some people at MIT, who are very, very smart, they figured out we got to do one thing at a time to shape the path. We have to make the elephant want to go down the path. This is what they did. A jug of milk. That's where they started when they realized this movement to get people to eat healthier was not working. They said, let's do one thing. Let's ask people to get a reduced fat milk instead of a whole milk. And what are the benefits of that? And people started doing that. Hey, that's not too bad. So then they were willing to take the next step and the next step and the next step. So they started shaping the path. So clarity, shaping the path. Keeps people from being resistant and getting exhausted. Does that make sense? So these are the three things we got to do. Crystal clear direction to avoid resistance. And I would add, always start with why. Crystal clear direction, always starting with why. And for you guys in this time of change, this is really important. Motivate that elephant. What's in it for them? What's the win for them? And shape the path. One thing at a time. What's going to make it more likely to happen? Okay, I brought you your own little cheat sheet. So take one and pass the ones to the rows behind you when you're through. And you can talk to your neighbor about what does that look like for you? What are some things that would matter to you guys in the work that you do as a leader where you can help direct the rider, being crystal clear, motivating the elephant. In other words, that's emotional side. That's the why. And shaping the path. So take a couple of minutes. What does that look like for you? And share with your neighbor. Did everybody get one? There's an extra over there. Okay. Everybody's got one? Uh-oh, we got one down there. So what does this look like in your leadership day to day?
If it had been the color of the carpet, I'd be
Big idea, big idea.
I know,
So I'm just using that, obviously you are children.
And then, this is.
And so
All right, so what were your takeaways from that very quick walk through Switch and stories from Switch? How can you apply that to what you do? What resonated with you?
It wasn't intuitive. It took a process to.
Yes, thank you. He said it wasn't intuitive. Exactly. That's the exact problem that I had with Switch the first 3 times I read it, because Quint said, "Oh, this is the most amazing work," and I kept thinking, "Quint, you've lost your mind. I do not understand this," but now I'm starting to get it. You're right. It takes a while to get this concept in your head, but I think this is really powerful to know as leaders and to start to watch for in a group of people. So in my group today, who's operating from their rider and who's operating from their elephant? Just helpful to know as you're leading a group, because it's very obvious who's operating from their rider, and sometimes we kind of lose track and get off in our elephant, and we got to watch for that too. All right, what else besides this is not intuitive? It takes a while for this to sink in. Anything else?
In the absence of a path, the elephant will not move.
That's right. In the absence of a path, the elephant will not move. That's why the why is so critical, for people to understand the why and for the path to be clear, one thing at a time. Yes, sir.
I would add to that, the path has to be clear, but it also be safe, or people will not take the risk to move.
Beautiful. The path has to be safe, or people won't go down it. The elephant won't go there, and we'll lose.
Get rid of the snakes.
That's right. Clear all the snakes. Absolutely. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes the elephant kind of goes with what Cynthia's saying, but in addition to, they create their own path.
Yes.
That completely.
Yeah. And so helping them stay with the group is part of shaping that path. And they have to understand the why. We have to be crystal clear and not too many things at once so that they're more likely to go with us. Results rollout helps us with that, when people can see where the group perception is.
You know, this, I don't know, this might just be a random thought, but I think it does apply to this, is that I was talking with a guy who manages surgeons, and he said, leading surgeons, managing surgeons is like trying to herd cats. Because they have to feel empowered.
Yes.
So they feel like they're masters of what they do, they have a clear purpose, and they need that autonomy. I think teachers are nearly the same.
Yes.
That everything that they need to do the best work that they possibly can, small group, large group, whatever it is creates the barriers, difficulties, or whatever to get everybody moving
yes.
in the right direction. The complexity of the job in itself really might even shrink the rider and
yes.
increase the size of the elephant. And
I think you're absolutely right.
so, I mean, I thought it was just, when he told me that, it's just interesting that there is a similarity between the skills that are needed in two different fields.
I think you're absolutely right. When I first read Quint's early books, Results That Last, Hardwiring Excellence, I told him, I said, this has nothing to do with me. I am a school principal. I don't know why you're having me read this junk. I know you wrote it, and I know it's probably pretty good for healthcare, but it means nothing. And he said, I'm going to help you build a crosswalk. KK, let's think about this. Who are your patients? Who are your physicians? And that's exactly what we came up with. And then it started to make sense when I could put the teachers in that physician slot. And you're right. They love their autonomy, don't they? They want to do it their way. So keeping them on the path with everybody else because we know it's the right thing to do that gets us the right results, that's hard. And surgeons go through that same thing. They're just like us. They're just like teachers. They want to keep doing surgery the same way they've always done it, even when there's a better way. because change is so hard. That's a great observation because it's absolutely true. I think I will. I'm adding a slide. So I think although this is a complex idea for us as leaders to just be aware of this and start trying to look for it. So keep your little cheat sheet. I actually cut this out. I wish I had known this when I was a principal, but I cut out this little slide part and I stuck it on my computer just to remind me when I was meeting with people, where are they operating from and how can I help them stay motivated, stay on the path, and let's stay rational. Above all, let's stay rational because that's hard to do. So what we have been talking about in this segment is this readiness for change. And understanding these concepts is a big part of leaders being ready to manage change. And you guys have change going on. Even when change is good, for the right reasons, done in the right way, it's still hard. It's still hard. So building this readiness and in you being ready to model that readiness is going to matter for the people following you. I'm telling you, it is me. When I was a little kid, I couldn't sit by the lamps at our house because the light bulbs would blow out.
I'm guessing we've got a big load on the circuits for this room.
My mother would say, sit in the middle of the couch. Don't sit by the lamp. It's probably me. So that is one of the factors of high performance. Notice consistency is here, and alignment and accountability. That's what we worked on earlier in our results rollout. Is let's get a consistent practice that we're all going to do in a similar way, not exactly like, but in a similar way, to stay in alignment. Janet and Quint talked about this. A lot of this is about emotion. Employee engagement has a lot to do with emotions. We just talked about the elephant, the biggest chunk of that puzzle. It doesn't matter what the path is or how directed the rider is. If the elephant's going to win, the elephant's going to win. So paying attention to people's emotional side is important. So this is what people want. This is how they want to feel at work. So if leaders are doing these things, they're going to get that motivated elephant. What is the very first one? Openly, I would add early and often. So if we as leaders are paying attention to these emotional sides of the people that we lead, it's a lot easier to motivate the elephant. They want to feel connected. They want to be a part of something. It goes back to the center of the flywheel there. That's what people want from the place that they work. So knowing what they need emotionally matters. What we tend to do is we have a bias toward action. That's what leaders do. Let's just get it done. We got to do this. Let's just get it done. For us to pause and pay attention to that human side will make us better leaders. We will get better results. Look at all those hands. Everybody wants change. Yeah, well, I think we need to change that. I wish they'd change X. We really need to change Y. But who actually wants to do the work of changing? Nobody. Because it's hard. It's really hard. I think owning that and saying that to the people we lead on a regular basis, we are in the midst of change. It's good change. Here are the whys behind why we're changing and what we're changing and how we're changing it. But it's still hard. So sending that message repeatedly and being in the change process with people and supporting them and saying, I'm right there with you. It's hard, but we're doing it because it's important to do, and here's the why. We're going to get better outcomes. We won't spend a lot of time on these phases, but just knowing what they are helps us understand. When we first get a change, people they're real excited about it, aren't they? Right now, I would say there's a lot of excitement around the new promises. the things that have shifted, the compensation package. There are a lot of things shifting that people are excited about. We as leaders need to really watch out for phase 2 coming up. It is very easy to slide back to we they. I didn't want to do that. Steve and the board decided that. I don't know why they're doing that. I think it's a terrible idea. I'm with you guys. So watch out for that, and don't fall into that trap. Change is messy. Some people are getting it and some people are not getting it. So watch for who's getting it and reward and recognize and help the people along who aren't getting it, which goes back to our tricks. Communicate early, often, and openly, one thing at a time. So just being aware is going to help us move along as changes come through. We have to lead this because we are the leaders. This is, you might not know this, but Studer Group is now owned by Huron, this massive worldwide corporation. But I like their leadership blog. And I loved this, that as leaders, we not only have to express that we're committed to the changes, we have to model the new behaviors ourselves. And most importantly, we have to reinforce it when we see it in other people. Because we as leaders are the sponsors of the change. And everybody's watching, remember? Everybody's watching what we do. Look at these percentages. I thought that was completely shocking. 10% depends on what we say. 20 to 30 on what we model. Look at that percentage for reinforce. So if we want these good changes that are happening in Janesville to stick and to become part of the fabric, part of the culture, yes, we have to say and do the right thing, but we have to watch out and reinforce when other people are doing it. That's where the big bang for our buck is. You know why? This is related to the elephant. Remember the list? What do people want? They want to be appreciated. It was on that list. When we do that, we get a lot of wins. People are appreciated. We're pointing out what right looks like. And we are going to get more of that behavior because we noticed it from that person and other people. So I think this is powerful. This is from an article called Stuck in the Middle. So you've seen this before. I want you to look at it again. We have to own, by what we do as leaders, all three of those. If we are we-theying about the changes going on, then we're giving other people permission to do it, aren't we? If we're doing it, we're giving other people permission to do it, and therefore we're promoting it, which is not what we want. So we have to stay in our leader stance all the time. Because we normally associate that one with performance management, but it really applies in managing change as well. We're the leaders. Here are a few behaviors that we want to try to avoid in times of change. These are human things that we all do. It's very easy for the elephant to take over. So be aware and watch for this in yourself as well as in others. And look for those opportunities when people say, and I'm just making this up because I have not been at any of these meetings. Well, you know, I went to one of those compensation meetings and I'm telling you, I think this is a crock. I think it's bad. That's your opportunity to say, not, oh, no, you're wrong. That would be the wrong thing to say. Or, you know, you're right. I agree with you. I can't say that to the superintendent, but I really agree with you, which is also wrong. But it is your opportunity to say, you know you might not agree with it, and change is hard, but I want you to know that the superintendent, the board members, and the senior leaders, they spent a lot of time trying to design a compensation package that was fair, that helped people out, got them a raise, and also listened to all the voices at the table. They really worked hard on that, and I just wanted you to know that. So that gives you an opportunity to carry the message out there. Does that make sense? So watch for those opportunities to carry the message. Okay, anything else on this idea of managing change? Now don't try to do all of this. Pick one thing. Pick one thing from what you've heard today to work on. One thing. All right, parent satisfaction. In your toolkit, the parent satisfaction survey section starts on page 17. You will notice it is the exact same process. And by the way, student engagement is also the exact same process. Parent and student survey results rollouts are a lot easier. Why do you think that is? Why would the parent results and the student results be easier than the employee engagement?
Not as personal.
Not as personal. Who owns these results? Everybody. That's right. The teachers own these. Everybody on staff at a school owns these. Even district level people, although they don't do a rollout, to school staff, they still own employee engagement and parent satisfaction and student engagement. So this rollout feels differently because we're all in this together kind of a feeling instead of owning it as the leader. So in that regard, it feels a little bit better, but the process is the same. So the district results are returned, very similar to employee engagement report. The district results are rolled out to the school leaders, and then the school leaders turn around and roll out to their teachers and staff. Same idea, top 3, bottom 3 from the district. Now let's look at our top 3, bottom 3. That fourth bullet, close the communication loop. That's the part that quite often gets dropped. So I have some sample messages in these slides for you. It's really important, although we don't normally roll out to parents unless we have an opportunity to. Some people take like a PTA or a parent advisory group and they do roll out to a group of parents. But hitting the highlights in some way with all parents is important because they need the message. Thank you for taking the survey. Here are a few things you said. Here's what we're doing about it. It's much simpler, but it's still important. So you've seen the parent satisfaction survey. If these were our scores, our overall mean, 3.67, we would roll that out as our overall mean. We would do the district top 3, celebrate the wins, the district lowest 3, and then we would do our school highest 3 and lowest 3 with this same process. Why is it that people are saying, why are people saying that their family is treated with respect at our school? Let's talk about that. What are your ideas? Right, and you get the same wins. Everybody gets to hear what we're doing, that we're doing well. And then you would go to the lower ones. So one of our lowest scores, I would recommend this school to other parents. So this is our school. So what would it look like if parents were recommending? What would we be doing for parents to recommend our school to other people? What would that look like? Right. Same process, just like with employee engagement. And when you get to the end, it's the same finish. We're going to do 1 or 2 things differently. I know you guys, because you've been doing this a while, You've worked on a lot of these and you already have some always actions in place, like around feedback. How many times we're doing positive communications and stuff like that. Those things make a big, big difference. Reading through those comments with that same lens, feedback is a gift. So being really open about that. I read all the comments that we got on our parent satisfaction survey, and here were 2 or 3 themes across the comments. Here's what parents said we're doing well. A, B, C, D. Share those. Share those. And here are some things that they'd like to see us work on. Share those. So sharing those themes from the comments, that's important to people at the school. They need to get a flavor of what the comments were like. And because they own these with you, you modeling that feedback really is a gift. And this is not teacher bashing or school bashing. This is about continuous improvement. You leading that message with them, because they will struggle with this a little bit more than they struggled with employee engagement, because it's about them. It's about you too, but it's about them. So teachers really struggle with parent satisfaction sometimes, and you have to help them past the blame and the excuse, and to blame it on, well, you know, those are the parents that never come to school. I bet the people that filled it out are the people that never come up here. They don't even know what we're doing. They didn't come to reading night, and they didn't come to So you got to manage all of that. So what would it look like if they were coming? What could we do? What are your ideas? How could we get better? So those same things apply to keeping it solution oriented. But help them understand it's okay to have all of these emotions while you're working through it. So for parent satisfaction, you'll want to do this just like you did before. Let people evaluate how the meeting went. You'll get better from their feedback. A good thing to do, collect these and kind of tally them. You can bring back to the team when you bring your action plan. Remember, I told you I was going to meet with my team, and here's the action plan. By the way, here's what you said on the participation form. 18 people filled it out. The average mean was a 4.2. The highest score was in, I was given an opportunity to provide feedback. So you can share back with them what they said collectively about the meeting, but it's really for your learning. So I would encourage you, if you're not doing this, notice I put parent satisfaction, student engagement. A lot of districts roll these two out together at the same time. So once a year rollout, and they have them together. A lot of people do them separately, but I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. Often you can come up with an action step or two that hit on both student and parent. One of those is positive communications home, which I know you guys are already doing. That impacts student engagement and parent satisfaction. Does that make sense? Here's the part I wanted you to really think about today, because this is quite often where we forget to close the loop. We got to communicate back to the people who took the survey. Remember me and Delta and Avis? I'm going to stop taking that survey at some point. But if I would got an email from Delta that says we're sharing 4,000 people filled out the survey last week, here are the results. Okay. So what you want to do is some kind of communication like this, which pretty much says the why behind the survey. We're doing the survey because we want to meet and exceed your expectations. Here's how many people took it. Here's what you said we do well. Here's what we're going to work on. And I love that second paragraph. It's important to us. We read every comment. This gives us really important information. We can look by topic, by school, across our district. This gives us input to guide our improvement to your child's learning environment and your satisfaction with our school. Just because you have a sentence like that in there, you've already improved their satisfaction. You haven't done anything yet, other than telling them why you're doing this survey. And see how simple this part is down here? Here are some things you Said we do well. Here's one thing we're working on. Here's what we're gonna do about it. So closing that loop with parents and then finding an opportunity to circle back to it sometime during the year. We call these the reminder messages. People forget. You should do the same thing for your employee engagement. Every so often during the year, you should say, remember, I'm working on providing you with an agenda in advance for each one of the meetings and starting and stopping on time. Remember, those were the things that you asked me to work on. So far, we've had 17 meetings, and I've had an agenda for 15 of those. So I'm getting better. I'm still working on that and getting better, but I just want to give you an update on that. You want to do the same thing with parents. Phone call home, message on your marquee, message in your little newsletter. By the way, we're still working on this. It reminds them of what you're doing. Because here's the thing about these parent satisfaction, well, all surveys, employee engagement too. People's perception changes over time. It doesn't happen all at once. So you have to keep reminding them what we're doing. Some of you are likely to have as one of your lowest 3 on employee engagement. My principal or supervisor gives me input into decisions that affect my job. Anybody ever had that on their lowest 3? Okay, I see a bunch of hands. Here is a great trick. Every time that opportunity happens, tell them it is happening. Use those exact words. So today is an opportunity for you to have input into decisions that affect your job. So what we're going to be talking about today is next year's schedule. I saw a superintendent do this just a couple weeks ago. I thought it was brilliant. Because she struggles with this one in her district. She wrote on the top of her newsletter out to the employees, because the school board's doing a policy change, and they wanted to get some, input, people to serve on the little committee around their policy change. She opened the newsletter with policy task force coming soon or something like that. Here is an opportunity for you to have input into decisions that affect your job. The school board is seeking volunteers to blah, 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 blah. So she's reminding them. People perceive they don't have those opportunities, when the truth is they likely do. They don't recognize them. People don't recognize it when you give them the opportunity, so use that language. You can do the same thing with parents and with students. Remind people that you're doing what they ask you to do. And then that last one is just an idea, some kind of exit slip or a plus delta in the hallway on a piece of chart paper, just a simple way to get a pulse check. This part matters, and this is what we often forget to do, is that messaging. Okay. That was pretty quick on the parent satisfaction, but it's truly the same process, and all the same things apply. The difference is it's shared ownership with teachers and staff. Questions about parent satisfaction? Don't forget to close the loop. Send that message.
At the high school level, we always have difficulty trying to get, a higher percentage of our parents to take the survey. So, having about 1,400 kids, multiply that by 2, take about 2,800 possibly parents.
A good rate of return is 30%. Survey companies will tell you that 30% is a pretty good rate. Provide them with an opportunity. Do it. Have something at your school that parents show up for. A lot of people schedule the parent satisfaction survey around this time of year because what's going on at school this time of year? The band concert and the Christmas play, and they're going to be there. And so you get up on the stage and say, our computer lab is open tonight. We'd really love it if you'd take 3 minutes and fill out our survey. And by the way, we've got baskets of candy bars by the computers. So after you take the survey, help yourself to a candy bar. I mean, shameless. Just do it. Just think of opportunities. What can you plan? A couple opportunities while the survey is open and get people to show up and do it. Incentivize it. Here's what I used to do. I was the principal of a magnet school, a district-wide magnet school. So my kids came from all over the city. which meant the vast majority of them were car riders because they didn't want to ride that trunk route bus thing that took them to it. We had placards like a political sign, and we would stand on car rider duty during the parent satisfaction survey with everybody sitting in that car rider line. What did they have in their hand? A phone. So we had the URL right there on our placard. Please take our parent survey. So think of things. How can you make people take it? So think about it. Yes.
We had an incentive, like you got a gift card that was donated to Woodman's if you walked into parent teacher conferences and took it. But we switched it and put it online. We created like a dummy Gmail account. And so when we emailed our parents, we said, if you're sitting at your computer, just email me that you, like, honor system, like, email me that you took the survey and we'll enter you in the drawing.
Yeah, anything like
So
that.
anything,
That's great.
they don't physically have to come in and do anything.
Yeah.
We found a way to just keep it online, and it did help.
I've also seen schools take 3 or 4 or 5 iPads and have them on the front counter. Every parent that comes in, if you've got an extra 3 minutes, we really love it if you would take our parent survey. We're collecting data on how satisfied our parents are with their child's learning environment. We really appreciate it if you would help us out. Most people are, if they have the time, will stop and do it. So talk to your teachers and staff about how can we get more people to take it. Good question, and that's a very common dilemma is how do we get people to take it. So just be sneaky, devious, do whatever you have to do to get people to take it. Absolutely. Okay, anything else about parent? Okay. All right, the last thing, and I brought this particular article for you today because you guys are going through change. My suitcase weighed 80 pounds. No, that's not true. Yeah, it's gonna weigh like 14 pounds going back, because my husband laughs at me all the time. My backpack normally weighs more than my suitcase. When he takes me to the airport, he carries the backpack and I carry the suitcase because it's always a lot lighter. How many of you read Dan Rockwell, The Leadership Freak? Dan Rockwell is the leadership freak. And I love the stuff that he puts out. He writes an article just about every day, but they're all very short, just like this one. And then on Saturdays, he calls it Solution Saturday, and he writes a slightly longer article. But it's always powerful. And so I use a lot of his articles because I think he talks about a lot of things that are on our mind all the time. Part of managing change effectively is being able to let go of who you used to be. What kind of leader were you 18 months ago? And being able to really objectively look at that and jettison pieces of it that are no longer relevant, no longer working, because you are a growing, evolving leader, just like you expect your teachers and the people who work in your departments to be growing, evolving employees. That's continuous improvement. It's a journey. There is no finish line. We're never going to get there. So take that article, glance through it, see what jumps out at you, and talk to your neighbor about what you see in there. Part of learning and growing as a leader is stopping doing some things that you've always done. You can talk to your friends now.
just throw yourself in going, well, is there like too much change or jettison is like rusting flow or like jetting into the brains.
Yeah.
Somebody went to something.
I'm fine. I kind of should use place.
Okay, so hopefully at least one thing jumped out at you and made you think,
Yeah.
Anybody want to share one thing from the article that was an aha? Any idea in there that made you think, yes, ma'am?
I think I just recognized, the importance, I think we all know this, but was reminded of the importance of life experiences.
Yes.
And how outside of your work, life experiences can shape our leadership. And so I was thinking of that, I became a mom recently and how that has probably changed my thinking about leadership. And
Absolutely.
as I move through the day as a leader.
You're absolutely right. And when people are going through wonderful opportunities like becoming a mom, and also when people are having devastating life circumstances within their family, it changes how you lead at work. It changes who you are. Sure. Anybody else?
If you're even aware of what any of those things that have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know, then how you can't react to it when you do, if you do.
Yeah.
And just your own awareness of what is happening.
Exactly. So take that pause. What is different about my leadership and why? What's impacting it right now that I just need to be aware of? And I love the one about shaping circumstances don't shape you, response shapes you. One of my favorite quotes, and I don't even know who said it originally, but I say it to myself all the time. It's not your situation, it's your attitude toward it. Which it really is. It's not the circumstances, it's how you respond to the circumstances. Very important for leaders, very important for leaders. Okay, second to last thing today. Think about how you know when you're growing. We worked today specifically on results rollout and change management. What is one thing that you heard or saw that impacted you today, and how will you change your leader behavior starting tomorrow? So what did you hear or do or see or talk about today, and how will it impact your leadership tomorrow? First step on the path. And I'm not in the right place. What do you think? Anybody got one to share?
I have one.
Yes.
So one thing I saw today was the metaphor of the rider elephant path. But now that, and all the good work that was done last week for the Empowered Learning PD across the district, I made myself a promise last week that I was, in my evaluations and supervision, give feedback to staff, how you can maybe improve your lesson to be more empowered. But I need to change my focus now and shape that path, like the conversation with Monty here. Just make him feel comfortable about letting go of some of that control they have to move from compliance to empowered. So I have to now change my pathway to get people to be more comfortable with empowered learning.
Excellent. Excellent. That's scary for teachers to do that. They feel like they're losing control. They could fail. Oh my gosh, I could fail. Okay. That's okay. We're all doing this where I'm growing as a leader, you're growing as a leader. Let's just keep going. So great. That's great. People have to feel okay to try new things, and we have to all acknowledge it's scary. Good. Anybody else?
Communication was something that came up often today.
Yes.
And leaders being effective by making sure they communicate timely, correctly, clearly. And I agree with that. But I will also share that there's a difference between needing to know something and wanting to know something. And leaders are constantly faced with, do I share everything everybody could possibly want to hear? Do I limit it to what they need to hear, or somewhere in between? And time isn't infinite.
True. It's a good point. I think the key there is be as transparent as possible, but you've got to be efficient in your communication. And I think it's always okay to say, we're hitting the highlights today for employee engagement. However, if you would like to have a conversation about any of the other items, I'm happy to schedule a time with you to do that. Because you're right, people are on a continuum. Some people say, just give me the facts, give me the Cliff Note version, I'm good to go. And other people do want to know everything. So kind of meeting people where they are, but maintaining efficiency of process. And just owning that. We don't have time to go over every item and talk about the highs and the lows of all, how many are there, 24 items? The regular 14 and the district 10? We don't have that time. So we're going to talk about the highest and lowest today in the finite amount of time we have for rollout. But if you need more information, want to talk about other things, I'm happy to talk to you about that. So I think managing transparency and openness, which is that need, with some people's wants. I'll tell you another thing about communication. Sometimes that want is lack of trust. I want to know everything because I'm not sure I trust you people leading us. So the more you can offer more opportunities, those people that are in that camp, they'll slowly stop doing that. Because they realize, well, he said he'd go over everything with me. So they get more comfortable, more trusting, their anxiety goes down, their confidence goes up, and they stop doing that. But in the beginning, that want to know is sometimes about lack of trust. So anything you can do to build that is helpful. Okay. Well, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to spend some time with you today. At Studer Group, we eat our own cooking. So I am very interested in your feedback to me. So this QR code On this side, that takes you to, it's only 5 questions. It takes you like a minute. An evaluation, you can also type in that URL into your browser. And by the way, it is case sensitive there where it says SE. But if you would give me some feedback on today's session, what you found helpful, what questions you might have, how I could improve as a facilitator and a coach for Janesville, I would be very appreciative of your feedback, which I will also send back to Steve to share with you so you can see what you collectively said about today's session. If you're interested in our newsletter, that's the QR code on the right. It takes you to Asti Kelly's email, and you can give her your email address, and she will add you to our monthly leadership newsletter, which is really a pretty short, tip-oriented.
The district isn't in there currently, will it be on there maybe at the end of the day?
Janesville's not in the list.
What? You're kidding. Wow.
We're so original, we don't exist.
So we're not first everywhere.
Where is my phone?
In that case,
Have y'all not done this with Janitor Robin before? Here.
It's not under school district either.
You know what? I was just about to say this. Let's do this. Because it's pulled by date. So it'll be pulled by today's date. Use my district. Choose Escambia. And I'll know I'll go pull it tonight. And I'll know that that's really Janesville's results. And I'll tell Julie what I'm doing.
Which one are we using?
Use Escambia, ESC.
There it is.
That's my home district, and they won't care if I'm goofing up their results because I can get Julie to fix it. So ESCAMBIA, just choose my district. And then I'll tell Julie what I'm doing, and I'll pull it tonight, and she can clean it up. That is weird. I need to send Julie a message, let her know that. So weird. Does anybody need my phone to do it? I won't be able to see your responses. Don't worry. Once you push submit, that's it.
I just put that one.
no. No.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I do my own out of, because of the care. My survey of auditors. And I do a rollout, because I've had it out. Right. So I do that rollout. You should. Right, I recreate my own. You're right, you know, they don't all work with
As you're wrapping up the survey, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the great morning of hard work that you put in today. I mean, we really.
Yes, thank you.
You really were on task this morning and really engaged in the learning that was going on. I'd like all of you to join me in thanking KK for guiding us this morning. I know that I have a bunch of takeaways and more than one or two things, but I promise I'll focus on one or two. But really some great ideas on a variety of things, from leading change to rolling out survey results and working, to continue to grow our district. And I know that slide that you had up there that we didn't look at a lot about, the honeymoon period and we're definitely in the honeymoon period right now.
Yeah.
And so that's fun and exciting, but, we have to really be mindful of, that journey that's going to come beyond that. And so these strategies are gonna help us to, work through that and to stay the course, because we do have a great pathway that we're on. And so we need to just keep shining the light on that pathway. And so thanks, KK, for helping us to do
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, Allison, I'll turn it over to you for next steps.
Just, we're gonna adjust the schedule a little bit because we've been speeding for a long time. And so just checking to see, lunch will be ready in about 5 minutes. So instead, we're gonna go to lunch at 11:45. Then, instead of, Dr. Smiley was going to give us some updates on one-to-one. So instead at 12:45, Dr. Smiley will share that information, and then we'll move right into Val Schmitz and our recertification for educator effectiveness. So
Super.
we'll
All right.
go ahead and break, and then we'll
Break.
be ready in about 5 minutes.